You're on telly, my love.
Say again.
You're on telly.
I'm on the telly.
That's a high-risk strategy.
Huh?
That's a high-risk strategy.
Got anything between my teeth?
Now, should we have a look? No, you're okay.
You're such a dick.
You know I am recording.
No, you're not. Oh. Oh. Oh well.
Hello and welcome to my third attempt at trying to video and photograph an air show at the same time. For anybody who's seen my first two attempts, this one's not really any better, it's just a bit longer. My name's Andy and welcome to the Midlands Air Show at Ragley Hall. For those that are interested, the stills are being shot on a Nikon Z8 and I've used three other cameras, an Osmo Action Cam, a Pocket 3 Pro and a Canon XF305. This is my office for today. That's me and a lovely bit of B-roll sweep on that. I am basically watching the video back at the minute whilst doing this voiceover, so I will pop in every once in a while to highlight any interesting bits, like bits that are actually in focus. And cover for any quiet bits. I've had to mute the commentary every once in a while because they play background music. Obviously Elton John hasn't got enough money, so there's a risk that YouTube may give me a copyright strike. This is a horrific landing and some serious nose-tail damage. The action cam is actually mounted on top of the Nikon Z8, so it's being quite a wide angle view. And this is some of the better stuff because it was actually shot in 4K. The Canon XF305 only shoots in 1080p, which is a bit of an oversight on my part. I really do need a 4K camera. Noticed that the radio controlled aircraft was not really stills from this. I've tried to shoot this every year and they are tiny and very, very quick. Just to give you a bit of an overview of the radio controlled models. The flying is astonishing really, to be honest. This is the first time using the Osmo Pocket 3 and Action Cam 4, I believe, and very, very impressive basically. Unfortunately, I did buy some ND filters for the day before Midlands Air Show, and Amazon assured me they were going to arrive that day. So the footage isn't as good as it can be, but even so, it's very good. As you may have noticed from the start of the video, I have my camera assistant, or better known as my wife Claudette, in the video. First time that she's appeared in my videos. Fair to say that she's not 100% happy with her role in the title sequence, but hey ho, I thought it was fun. She is, however, very good at holding the camera whilst I'm changing batteries and handing me pork pies, so bit of background on myself, as I realise this opening sequence is going on a bit, to be honest, but I can't be bothered to edit it now. As I say, my name's Andy. I'm a I suppose, sports photographer. So the stills are considerably better than the video. I was getting a bit bored of photography, so I decided to have a go at a bit of videography. Always had a love of aviation, and I'm enjoying the challenge of using a video camera instead of the stills. I wouldn't suggest to anyone to try a video and photograph an aviation event at the same time. It is incredibly difficult, and you do miss a lot of stuff. This is the hot air balloons, obviously. So also part of the event. The Midlands Air Show itself is fantastic, much more relaxed than Riyadh. Well, Riyadh's very relaxed this year. They didn't bother doing it because it was all a bit bomby over in the Middle East, and for anyone who doesn't know, RAF Fairford is used as by the Americans as a forward operating base, for want of a better word. So they decided that having 200,000 people wandering around a base that's actually in operation at the time, not a good idea. This is the Ravens. They went off to refuel apparently. This plane was slightly odd. It landed and did absolutely nothing else.
Look at that lovely, settled beautifully there.
There we had the first few words from our commentators. Peter Ando Anderson from Australia. He was with Helen Tempest, an ex wing walker. Peter Anderson, very knowledgeable, apart from being able not to be able to pronounce the word Midlands. So this is your first look at my inability to use the Canon XF305 following a very small plane not moving particularly quickly.
So the aircraft is officially known as Miss
a skill that I'm working on,
and
but a skill that I don't
Plain
have.
Sailing.
That will
The
become
aircraft, I think,
plainly
is
obvious
currently based
as
at
we move
Duxford
on.
in Cambridgeshire. Paul Warren Wilson, who was looking for a Catalina.
Another was awarded to Flight Lieutenant David Hornwell, Royal Canadian Air Force, and it was a posthumous award, also for sinking U-boat 1225. They used to go out and harass the Japanese at night. What they do is they get beer bottles and they put a razor blade inside and then throw them out, and it made a hell of a din.
Well, a PBY piloted by Lieutenant Commander Adrian Marks rescued 56 sailors in high seas from a heavy cruiser, the Indianapolis, after the ship was sunk during World War II. And with no more room inside, the crew tied the sailors to the wing.
Qantas during World War II had what they called the Order of the Double Sunrise. They would leave Perth and fly non-stop all the way to Ceylon, and during that time you saw 2 sunrises.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that formed part of the liaison between Australia and England during the Second World War.
that beautiful amphitheatre view that you have across our display area will give you the best vantage point of pretty much any air show in the UK this year. So
one of the engines that could be fitted in this, the 115 horsepower Rotax, runs on Mogas or car petrol. Now, that might not be very cheap these days, but it's a lot cheaper than aviation gasoline. And as you can see and hear, it is very, very quiet. Basically, the forward movement of the aircraft is being controlled by an engine and prop on the rear of that beautifully sculptured fuselage. In the early days, the rotors could be hand spun, but in this, there's a little drive that can start the rotor blade turning, but it does not provide the lift. What it does is get the rotors turning. The engine behind pushes you along.
It's never warm in an open cockpit aeroplane, even on a hot sunny day. It's rarely warm.
Those rotors going above you.
Oh, now look at this. This is very James Bond, isn't it? It's down through the trees. And then watch this, everybody. Such a tight turn. That is the way to make an approach into a landing. Fantastic work. Well done, Pete.
Put your hands together for Pete Davis for that. Andrew Tyfel, if you could please report immediately. It was designed by Stelio Frati, and they built 2 prototypes before Soya Makeni purchased the design, and again it was bought out by Air Mackie in 1997, so lots of changes of hands. Sold principally to military operators as the SF260 Warrior. Both piston engine and turboprop versions have been produced. This one powered by a 260 horsepower Lycoming 0540. Lovely to fly in. Absolutely comfort plus.
So
Couple of. When I spoke to Paul, he actually said that one of the major recipients was Libya, and they had 214 of these. They used them in a combat role against neighbouring Chad between 1978 and 88. And Chad also operated a mixed fleet, which included Douglas Sky Raiders provided by France, and also captured Libyan SF-260. So this aircraft is actually the oldest flying SF-260, has serial number 102. It's registered GRAZI. Italian for thank you, grazie.
we also try and give you great opportunities for photographs, and those with the long lenses will be able to see against this gorgeous blue backdrop and those lovely wisping clouds. Very good opportunities for photographs. And if you're in the air, ladies and gentlemen, give Paul a big wave as he comes past down the flight line. And there he'll get a perfect view of each of us. So this will be the final pass that's Paul giving us. So again, ladies and gentlemen, arms in the air, give Paul a wave.
Introduced in 1936 as a 3-seat torpedo bomber.
talked earlier about the Catalina landing on water, but imagine landing this on an aircraft carrier. It's a very rugged aircraft, but it was described as being dropped into a coal cellar while sitting in a tin bath. And
May 1941, a swordfish from HMS Victorious and Ark Royal involved in the hunt and the destruction of the Bismarck. The swordfish torpedo strikes crippled the steering and ran through the channel to their home ports, heavily escorted by Luftwaffe aircraft, including this.
So this swordfish is part of the Navy Wings collection based at the Royal Naval Air Station at Yeovilton down in Somerset. It was such a pleasure to spend time with a real veteran.
You can see that huge torpedo under the fuselage.
And also, I can see the person in the rear waving at us, which is brilliant.
Of course, in that position, there would have been a 303 Lewis or a Vickers K gun in that rear position, powered by a Bristol Pegasus 9-cylinder radial engine, just under 700 horsepower. It could carry a 1,670-pound torpedo, or a 1,500-pound mine, or 1,500 pounds of bombs on the fuselage and wings. Incredibly, it could also carry 8 60-pound warhead underwing rockets. And we were very fortunate at another air show to see this actually take off from its home airfield where it was manufactured and fly back over and display, and in atrocious conditions, I must say. Beautiful sound of that Pegasus engine.
This is the high-speed fly past.
High speed and low speed at the same time. Look at the size of that torpedo that it's carrying there.
Now, having some experience of waving from aircraft, I can say that they're waving away in the full slipstream with the propeller, so it will be very bumpy up there and not making waving very easy, so well done for the team to keeping that going. And for our next display, we're going to take you right back to the glorious era of the 1930s with our beautiful formation of stomps.
Yeah, just goes to show there are
The next Richard
bits
is
of
Richard
luck in life
Meredith.
that
His paternal grandfather
sort of make
learned
it
to
look
fly
like
in
you
the
know
Great
what you're
War, so
doing.
that would be World War I, and he was inspired by his adventures and that of Biggles. He also was an avid model builder and joined the Central Flying School at the age of...
Just minute adjustments. Somebody puts a little bit too much throttle on, everybody else has to basically, and there they go. A lovely bishop break, as it's called, or an opposition break.
The aircraft again waving away as they come down the crowd line. And all will see the aircraft bobbling around in their own particular airspace, but working really hard to keep that formation as tight as possible.
Every one of the team members is being led by the leader. He is actually flying the entire formation. They've gone through lots and lots of practice of this on the ground. Also, they've been doing it for many, many years, but every time they undertake a flight, they do a walkthrough to just check that everybody knows exactly what their movements are. To bring it into perspective, you imagine you and two other cars are driving along at 70 miles an hour and you come up to a bend. The length of the distance travelled by the outside aircraft is actually longer. So what he has to do is he has to increase speed if you're going to be in line abreast, maintaining that position. But they have to do this not only in 2 dimensions, they have it in 3 dimensions.
And now they've moved into a different formation for a tail chase, where it's a follow my leader around almost like a racetrack. So Richard's finished his display and he's going to be bringing the aircraft back into land. And this has been an interesting thing to have a look at the characteristics of landing a tailwheel aircraft. So he has very little forward view, especially as the tail comes down for landing. And you can see him he'll be coming along and side slip the aircraft around a bit, so that means he's pushing the rudder and the aircraft cants over sideways, that he can really clearly then look down the fuselage to the runway. So I'm just having a look to see if I can see him coming down. So he's on a final approach now, and you can really see that he's pushed the aircraft over sideways a little bit, and he'll be looking down that fuselage, keeping an eye on the runway. And then at the last minute, you see it now pushed around the other side, and at the last minute he'll straighten the rudder so the aircraft comes straight down the runway, and we'll see whether he does a 3-point landing or a wheeler. Pretty much a 3-point landing. It's nearly down. There it is. Beautiful job. Well done.
Now that is 10 points from all the scorecard. All the pilots that are here, you know yourself, they all score landings, whether they... Over 840 were produced in France and Algeria, used by France as a primary training machine for the military. They decided to utilise components of that aircraft to produce the Jet Prophet, the first one, and it was a very ungainly looking aircraft. Today's machine's flown by Ian Brett and Sean Giudetti. Very straight wing there, not designed for high-speed flight. This is developed from the Jet Provis T Mark V. Powered by the very, very reliable 3,100 pound thrust Rolls-Royce Viper. Not the most comfortable position sitting in those ejection seats in the cockpit. It's quite straight backed. Ecuador, Oman and Yemen have used their strike masters in combat. The different marks were allocated to the various export customers. Very reliable machines, very rugged. Could be operated in difficult conditions. As the Kiwis ordered 16 in 1970 to replace the de Havilland Vampire, and it wasn't until 1992 that the last flight was undertaken by three-stroke mates at maximum speed of the aircraft, about 418 knots, or about 770 kilometres an hour. Very, very happy down at low level, as we see here. Often flying at low level, doing what they call a pop-up manoeuvre when they approach their targets.
And we have liftoff.
The aircraft today being flown by the captain, Kev Matheson, Royal Navy, 2,500 hours in Sea Kings. Co-pilot is Flight Lieutenant Al Sparks, RAF. He's a former Army Air Force pilot, now flying Chinooks. There are two crewmen. Paul Middleton, he's a qualified air crewman on Sea King and Wessex. And we have George. We'll see George a bit later. and it flew way back in 1959. But the philosophy with the American helicopters was quite different to the Royal Navy philosophy. American helicopters kept very close to the fleet. Many of them only operated on plane guard duties, where if an aircraft flamed out on takeoff from the carrier, they'd go and pick them up. And they also had an anti-submarine role, but it was more controlled by the aircraft carrier itself. The Royal Navy, the philosophy was quite different. It had a lot of independence to operate the various helicopters, the various Sea King types, and they had a lot of independence.
The wonderful thing about the Sea King is it hovers, as we can see, which gives everyone a fantastic opportunity to photograph it from every angle you can imagine.
Has a rotor diameter of over 62 feet, or nearly 19 metres, a length of 17 metres or 55 feet.
Cameras at the ready. Slipstream, hands in the air, please. Give them a wave. Well done. Team, they're waving back.
Worthy status and operate a select fleet of vintage military helicopters. You see a lot of Spitfires and this and that around the place for warbirds, but these really do have an incredible place. If you think about it, the helicopter operations with the military started in World War II, but really kicked along during the Korean War. Historic helicopters currently have 12 helicopters, including one Westland Widgeon, one Westland Whirlwind, a Wasp, 7 Sea Kings and 2 Westland Wessex. The aims of historic helicopters are basically to educate and inform the public, including but not limited to individuals aged 14 years and above and those of a military background, of the role of our armed forces and aviation generally by collecting, conserving and preserving and providing apprenticeships. They're based at Chard Equestrian Centre grounds, Chard in Somerset.
Now, what can we see coming out the door? The door opened a little wider just
Well,
now.
we talked about the 4th crewman, George.
And George is being dropped down to, in theory, rescue somebody from who's bobbing around in the sea below.
He's not terribly active, is he? The rotor downwash from the helicopter. We spoke about the autogyro earlier on, the gyrocopter, where the air goes up through the blades, providing enough movement for the gyrocopter to hover. In this case, the air is coming down through. There is an actual formula that you can use to work out the speed of the downwash, and it gets right up there depending upon the weight of the helicopter. I have actually seen with NH90, the Taipan, blow over VW combis on the beach as it was coming into land with an injured sailor off a ship way off the coast.
That's also one of the reasons that Sea King was parked kind of out on its own and not on the flight line, so that when it took off there was no chance of that downdraft damaging any of the aircraft in the vicinity.
Well, that can get up to around about 150 kilometres an hour, depending upon the type of helicopter and its weight at the time.
So I don't know whether I'm feeling sorry for George or whether he's nice and cool there on this hot day.
I think he's quite cool. He's come down to have a look. See if the pyros from the TJD models earlier on might have upset any sheep down there. Of course, this is the role that these aircraft perform. It was not only out to sea, but they also dropped down medical aid to people on mountains, lost in the snow, all over the UK.
So George, in theory, has dropped down, picked up his passenger, clipped them in place. They're holding on tight, and now he's taken safely up into that rear compartment as the Sea King.
Yeah, he looked very comfortable when I was in the back there the other day, having a few of the 40 winks is probably well deserved. Sea Kings were used on operations in the Falklands campaign on troop transport, anti-submarine and search and rescue. Also took part in the Gulf War, the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina, the conflict in the Balkans there, in Iraq, Sierra Leone, Persian Gulf, Cyprus, Lebanon for Operation Highbrow, and also Afghanistan. Again, flight safety is paramount for every operation. And then the flag. Trailing the ensign there. Give them a big wave and a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Super close so we can get them. Everybody wave please. Ladies and gentlemen, arms in the air. Give them a wave. And you can see the crewmen quite clearly checking below just to make sure that the aircraft is clear to land.
The team are now running in for the signature move called the Twizzles.
He's on afterburner as well.
Now this aircraft is the only MiG-17 flying in Europe. Very lethal shape. You can see on the top of the wings there are configured parts there. China has the Shenyang J5, and that is one of the things which makes the MiG an incredible fighting aircraft. Has a rate of climb of some 12,800 feet per minute. Two-seater, single-seater MiG-15, operated by this company and the 17, and they are hoping to get more MiGs in the stable. Big wave, ladies and gentlemen. For Bartosz Maciejewski. Brilliant for the photographers, even though the
It's beautiful, isn't
and
it?
it really did get exported to quite a few countries. Even though it had 223 and a 37mm cannon, same armament as the MiG-15, this was very lethal in afterburner now.
So if you look crowd centre and up high in the sky, you can see the extra.
And that was the wife
tracking
pointing
in
out
towards us.
the next
And
display for me very
literally you can
helpfully.
see it helicoptering down.
Just think, aviation fanatic, photographer
and then
and
pulling
married.
up for the next manoeuvre.
Not a Venn diagram you get very often.
Walter Extra, another of these aircraft where the designer and pilot named the aircraft after himself, and it was designed to do really one thing, and that was to win aerobatic competitions at world-class, unlimited level, which it did with amazing success. Its strength and stiffness gives it amazing control, and also, as we said, it's an eye-popping roll rate of around about 400 degrees per second, which means it can do manoeuvres like flick rolls and snap rolls incredibly fast. Burkett has been an aviation enthusiast all his life, and first flew aerobatics in the de Havilland Chipmunk as a cadet, and later he owned part of his own Chipmunk, and then did early displays with a flying circus called Captain Neville's Flying Circus, which involved balloon bursting, flower bombing, and flying limbo under bunting. Have full ability to sing a song whilst they're flying all these amazing manoeuvres. And look at that, that is an extraordinary thing to be able to do with an aeroplane. That is pumped through the exhaust at 2 litres per minute and creates this amazing spoke system that's trailing out today. Now you've got an opportunity now to give Chris a wave. Hands in the air, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for Chris Burkett in the extraordinary, amazing Extra 300.
Over 16,700 of these were produced. I'm proud to say, apart from America, Australia was the only country to build the Mustang. They fitted the bubble canopy. That's what you see here. The P51D model being the most produced. That's the one you see all over the world. It's a lethal aircraft. Although not as manoeuvrable as the Spitfire, it certainly had longer legs and became known as the fighter with the 7 league boots. Operated in virtually every theatre of the Second World War. And ended the war on operations in Europe and also what they call the VLR missions, flying in the Pacific that were operating out of the islands, escorting B-29s to the homeland and coming back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, coming in from your left, the star-spangled pair, the B-17 and the OV-10 Bronco. It was the numbers of B-17s that made the difference. Top turret, tail turret, a Sperry ball turret underneath for ventral protection. Later versions fitted with a chin turret under the nose, as you can see here. Bomb bay doors open. The first missions over Europe, 17th of August 1942. 12 B-17s of the 97th Bomb Group, led by Major Paul Tibbets with General Ira Eager, attacked the marshalling yards at Rouen. Now that name, as well as being responsible for leading the first B-17 raid over Europe, he later went on to fly the Enola Gay, the B-17 bomber, sorry, the B-29 bomber that dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. There's a lot of pilots flew these aircraft, but two in particular stand out. One being Gene Roddenberry, who was the creator of Star Trek, and also Tom Landry. He was with the Dallas Cowboys, the American football team. Beautifully displayed there by Peter. 4 1200 horsepower Wright Cyclone engines, 9 cylinders each. A brilliant Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, just under 13,000 built. About 15 different variants, giving you the shape that you see here, together with a larger tail. 1350 caliber Browning M2 machine guns. It can carry about 2,000 kilos of bombs. 17,600 on overload configuration.
By Ellie Sanningbow and her team. And don't forget, they receive no government funding to keep this beautiful aircraft flying, so if it's something that you feel you'd like to support, please look at that.
We're now certainly jumping into a completely different era. Configured pass there. Again, have a look at how high in the saddle Tony actually sits. This aircraft, former Luftwaffe target tug, but is certainly was used for the target wedge operator, but they could carry up to 6 fully equipped troops sitting on the floor in that rear cargo area. Combat Bronco was undertaken in 1968, and that was for the full Vietnam combat evaluation.
He has a commercial license with single, multi-engine and seaplane instrument and instructor ratings. Most notable was the Skyvan formating on the Vickers Vimy and also the Vulcan aircraft, plus de Havilland Portsmouth to fast jets including the Typhoon.
Why would you use a fast jet pilot in an aircraft like this, or even more so in an aircraft like the Cessna Bird Dog or the Cessna 02? Look at that, that's a Khe-Sanh approach, designed to get the aircraft down as fast as possible, aka the Sarajevo Pass.
Slipstream, you're doing brilliantly, keep waving and pulling up and rolling. Isn't that fantastic?
Very simple to maintain aircraft, fitted with North American aviation ejection seats, and could take off and land from carriers and also amphibious assault ships without the requirement for arrestor wires or a catapult. Substantial losses. There's the last pass there. Nice wing wave, and as you can see, very aerobatic. That is the last pass there for the Mark 9 Spitfire, the most numerous of the Spitfire variants produced, and of course beautiful aileron or victory roll. Now coming in from your right at Warp 9, the Turbo Firecat. Only built 35 of these, specifically designed for firebombing. Modifications were developed by Conair in-house for the firefighting and engine replacement by the maintenance arm of the Conair Group. And you can see they're dropping. That's what it does in real life. Was some 15,000 total hours. 2023 acquired by A3A, as the company is known, for airworthy restoration and display. First registered Foxtrot Alpha Yankee Foxtrot Tango with the first flight in October 23. To safeguard French aeronautical heritage by the recovery and restoration of aircraft with the constant aim of reflying these aircraft. Saw the installation of the much lighter 1220 shaft horsepower PT6. The French Security Civil operated 19 Firecats and Turbo Firecats between 1982 and 2020. This one, Tanker 15, was manufactured by Grumman as an S2F tracker It was converted in 1966 to a US-2A aircraft and assigned to the Naval Air Station, Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. Ended its career after time in Japan by being transferred to the continental United States to the Alameda Naval Air Station in California, right on San Francisco Bay. Placed in long-term storage. In '85 it was purchased by Conair and converted to a piston engine fire cap. Now it was one of the ones that were destined to go to France. Their civil defence agency and the French government responsible for the protection of the French population from all sorts of things, including fires. Now above us, there's the growl of that 1340. So the then Empire countries, now known as the Commonwealth countries, you had Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Rhodesia, Canada.
Now, the Harvard is described as thrilling but challenging to fly. The cockpit layout is complex, featuring a complex array of levers, instruments, hydraulic controls, but in his spare time he still enjoys flying lighter aircraft and instructs student pilots, and also enjoys playing the trumpet.
It also had fabric-covered sides. Now, obviously that was a maintenance nightmare, so North American introduced changes to put in removable aluminium panels on the sides. They also introduced washout on the wings, which cured a major problem of the early Harvards. That section to the oncoming airflow actually increases. And that means that if the wing stalls or loses lift, it loses lift evenly across the wing. Where there is no washout, you have a major issue, especially if you're flying in unbalanced flight conditions. What happens is the wingtip will stall rather than the rest of the wing, and the wingtip will drop rather rapidly. Very disconcerting. You can end up inverted in a circuit pattern, low to the ground. Post-World War II, the aircraft was employed by quite a few air forces. Over 60 different air arms used one or more of the nearly 15,500 that were produced. And if you also imagine it, when there was an order for, say, 100 aircraft, you'd actually build a T6 or a Harvard from brand new parts.
Alright, good afternoon everybody. As you've just heard, I'm Squadron Leader Stu Roberts. I'm Red 10 for 2026. I'm the display supervisor for the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows. I've got a couple of roles. My main job is safety and supervision and feedback for the team, but I'm also here to commentate. So if I do go quiet at any point, that's because I'm busy dealing with something with the team or something else in the background. I'm here mainly to guide you through the display. I'll give you some background information on the team as well as the wider RAF, but most importantly making sure you don't miss any of the show-stopping moments the whole team have worked hard to deliver for you. The RAF is often called upon to be the United Kingdom's first responder. RAF aircraft and crews are on alert 24/7 to deter, defend, and if necessary, defeat threats to our sovereign airspace. The ability to rapidly generate global air and space power allows the RAF to support and protect our national interests, as well as those of our partners and allies, wherever they may be required. The Red Arrows is a small part of the RAF, but conduct activities in support of strategic objectives, both at home and abroad. Many of the team today were inspired to join the military after seeing the Red Arrows as a child, and our displays in the UK helped to raise the profile of the wide range of amazing careers made available in the military. We're often deployed overseas to promote UK interests or industry, as well as strengthen critical international partnerships and alliances. Our ability to take the colours of the Union flag and paint them in smoke across the sky has proved highly successful around the world. As a military unit, the Red Arrows has an organised enough structure like most others. Our commanding officer is Wing Commander Sasha Nash. She brings significant experience to the role, having previously flown the Tornado GR4 on operations. She leads a 140-strong team made up mostly of military personnel, but also a number of reservists, commercial partners and civil servants who are all vital to the output of the Red Arrows. These individuals represent the vast cross-section of talented people who contribute daily to operational success across the RAF and wider UK defence sector. The team are airborne and it's not long to the start of the show, and the display sequence for 26 will feature 7 aircraft, giving us the opportunity to combine innovation and heritage, with the team originally forming in 1965 as a 7-ship. The show format will remain familiar to those that have seen us, but it's given the team leader an opportunity to introduce a few changes to produce a show that's different from that seen before. This transition to a smaller formation is also important to ensure the continued delivery of a world-class aerobatic display while managing our Hawk T1 aircraft in the final phases of its time in RAF service. The team leader's got 3 display profiles available to him, and with the weather conditions today, assuming we get the wet airspace from Birmingham, I'm hoping they're going to go full. As a squadron, we aim to inspire people of all ages and backgrounds to engage in science, technology and innovation, but most importantly, fulfilling their own potential. The show you're about to see is the culmination of 7 months of rigorous work, dedication and training, both on the ground and in the air. This is to achieve the high standards we set for ourselves, living up to our service motto of ECLAT, meaning excellence. We've still got a few minutes to go. The team are probably routing around to the north of Birmingham as we speak. They'll be priming the aircraft, getting the jets set, ready for the display. I'll come back to you shortly when they're a little bit closer. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Arriving at over 400 miles an hour in a demonstration of speed, precision and teamwork, representing the Royal Air Force and the very breasted British, the 2026 Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows. As the team sweep past, the first part of the show is designed to demonstrate the aircraft flying as one. The team pilots are listening to the cadence of the boss's commands. As they reverse to the left, on the left-hand side is Flight Lieutenant Andy McEwen. He's a former F-35 stealth fighter pilot from RAF Marham, and he's also been on exchange with the US Marine Corps flying the AV-8B Harrier II. As the boss calls Concorde go, the wings slide backwards in a cadence honed over winter training. The wings are now 180 feet away from the boss, and as they roll out, you'll note the iconic nod of the shape to Concorde. Their bodies weighing 4 times they do normally. As they do so, they'll switch and you see them move into Eagle. T1s that we fly are in similar vintage to Concorde, approaching nearly 50 years old. The loop and twist you've just seen will have been felt and handled by the pilots through the control column. All the changes in aerodynamic loads and G-forces need to be managed, making smooth controlled display flying really difficult. Coming around for the front with a splash of colour, this is Blackbird. team fly away into the distance, the iconic smoke trails are generated in the hot exhaust of the aircraft. Each aircraft can contain 5 minutes of white and a minute each of red and blue. These are pilot selectable in cockpit and have to be done at the right time. They also have to be carefully choreographed to make sure they last the entire duration of the show. The team are now hidden behind the trees out to the left-hand side. They're decelerating and deploying their air brakes to increase the drag. In a hark back to the previous 7-ship iterations, we're flying a manoeuvre that hasn't been seen for nearly 30 years. This is setting up for the 7-ship rollbacks. As the team appear from the trees on the left-hand side, they're going to fly coordinated rolls from the inside to the outside of the formation. I'm going to let you enjoy the sights and sounds of rollbacks. Get your cameras ready for Tornado. As Red 5 calls aboard, they're setting up in coordinated rolls around the formation. Keep watching for the colour change as the team come round to the right. Running in for the left, they're setting up for the 3-4 split. As the formation splits in front, out to the left-hand side is Reds 1, 2 and 3. Closing at over 700 miles an hour and 100 feet above the trees, this is the setup for Hannah Pass. Ladies and gentlemen, get your cameras ready for the 3-4 cross. Drawing a snake-like line through the sky, this is the serpent roll. You may see them pop up behind the trees as they roll. They're going to set up for circus. They're going to meet in the centre and fly maximum radius turns towards each other. They're pulling 6G, looking out the top of the canopy to make sure they miss each other at the back.
Oh, that's clever.
The team are going to loop in front of us and then depart over our heads. accelerate down towards us, please put your hands together and make some noise for the 2026 Red Arrows.
I was going to end on the Red Arrows, but as the RAF Falcons turned up, I suppose I really ought to include it in the video. This is my least favourite part of the show, to be honest. A few blokes throwing themselves out of perfectly operational aircraft, but incredibly difficult to photograph, really, to be honest. But yeah, here they are. Anyhow, if you've got this far in the video, you probably want to have a think about your life choices. It is a learning curve for me, and I think a few little bits of improvements in the tech next year, and going out and using the new cameras, but may improve things, but certainly lessons learned trying to video and photograph an event with 4 cameras. Not such a great idea, but I'm sure it can be done, and you've only got a year to wait until I probably have another go at it. But anyway, as I say, if you've got this far, thanks for watching.